Right now, if you search for Oradour-sur-Glane, France on Google Street View, you will find nothing. The French government deliberately blocked it. 642 people were massacred here in a single afternoon in 1944, and the ruins have been preserved exactly as the killers left them. This is not the only European town that has been hidden from view. Some have been buried under radioactive contamination. Some have been erased by governments to suppress ethnic cleansing. Some are so contaminated with asbestos that breathing the air can kill you decades later. And some are technically still there. But what Google shows you is a lie. These are 15 ghost towns in Europe that Google Maps won't show you, ranked from fascinating to genuinely haunting. I need to warn you about number 1. It is not just a ghost town. It is Europe's Chernobyl, and the death toll is still climbing. Google Maps won't show you the real Krakow, Italy. On the screen, it is a cluster of stone shells clinging to a cliff. But in 1963, a landslide split the ground beneath its homes. By 1980, after the Irpinia earthquake, the last residents were forced out. Now, visitors sign waivers and wear helmets to walk its empty streets. The World Monuments Fund added Krakow to its watch list in 2010, but entry is locked behind a gate and a local guide. Google's privacy blur hides the ruins, but not the silence left by 2,500 vanished lives. Google Maps won't show you inside Kayaköy, Turkey. The map reveals a faded patch in the mountains, but it cannot explain why 10,000 people disappeared. In 1923, the Treaty of Lausanne forced every Greek Orthodox family to leave, erasing a community overnight. No massacre, just the ache of absence. Today, the Turkish government calls it a peace village, and UNESCO marks it as a symbol of reconciliation. A descendant wrote that it was extremely difficult for them to leave the land where they were born and raised. Google Maps won't take you through Pyramiden, Svalbard. The satellite view shows a Soviet mining town, but Street View ends at the fence. On April 23, 1998, the last workers left everything behind. Arktikugol declared Pyramiden a heritage monument, and Norway restricts access to guided tours. Former foreman Ivan Petrov remembered that they were told they would be relocated to Barentsburg. Within weeks, the machinery was dismantled and the houses were emptied. Imber sits hidden behind locked gates on Salisbury Plain. On July 1, 1943, every family received a War Office order to leave within 48 hours. The British military needed the land for D-Day training. Under the Defense Act of 1988, the Ministry of Defense keeps Imber closed, except for rare open days. Eleanor Shaw, who lived there as a child, remembered, "We packed a suitcase, boarded a bus, and never saw our cottage again." Pripyat, Ukraine, is a blurred patch on Google Maps. On April 26, 1986, Chernobyl's Reactor 4 exploded. Within 36 hours, 49,500 residents were evacuated by bus, leaving pets and possessions behind. In 2018, the Ukrainian government asked Google to blur the exclusion zone, citing public safety and respect for the displaced. Today, Pripyat's ambient radiation still measures 0.12 to 0.25 microsieverts per hour. Olga Koval, a nurse, recalled, "We took our children, our pets, and left everything behind. The sky was orange, and the sound of sirens never stopped." Oradour-sur-Glane, France, is a pixelated ghost. On June 10, 1944, Waffen-SS troops massacred 642 people, including 247 children. A decree on July 28, 1945 preserved the ruins as a memorial. In 2014, France's Ministry of Culture requested Google blur all panoramic images, invoking dignity for the dead. A survivor remembered, "We were gathered in the barn, the door was slammed, and the fire began." Maps. Erase. Sometimes for security, sometimes for safety, sometimes to defend memory. Google Maps isn't the only window into these vanished places. When one platform blurs a ghost town into anonymity, another often leaves it exposed. Every government request to remove or obscure imagery is logged in Google's transparency report, a public record, but stripped of the original letters or decrees. By cross-referencing these logs with open-source alternatives, the full picture starts to emerge. OpenStreetMap traces the outlines of abandoned buildings where Google erases detail. Yandex, drawing from Russian and regional data, often keeps high-resolution tiles available for places like Pripyat or Kayakoi, even after Google compliance. Mapillary and Mapillary's user uploaded 360-degree photos, sometimes fill in the gaps, showing streets and ruins that Google's Street View never captured, or that were later blurred at the request of ministries and cultural agencies. Comparing these layers, the pattern becomes clear. Google's removals are not technical limitations, but deliberate responses to formal demands, whether for public safety, military secrecy, or the dignity of the dead. The French Ministry of Culture, for example, invoked Article L441-2 of the Heritage Code to force a blur over Oradour sur Glane in 2014, citing the risk of trivializing a massacre. The UK Ministry of Defence requested pixelation of Imber for ongoing training security. Turkey's Ministry of Culture asked for Kayakoy's rooftops to be masked to deter vandalism. Each request leaves a digital fingerprint, date-stamped, categorized, but rarely explained in detail. For researchers, journalists, or anyone seeking the truth behind these redactions, the method is simple. Check Google's public log, then compare the same coordinates on OpenStreetMap or Yandex. Where one map goes gray, another may show what remains. This approach exposes not just what is missing, but who wanted it hidden and why. In the next stories, this technique will reveal how mapping silence can also mask environmental hazards and corporate negligence, with real consequences for the people left behind. As best, Russia is a town mapped in straight lines, but the real boundaries are drawn in dust. The open-pit mine here produced over 1.2 million tons of chrysotile asbestos each year. Air in the neighborhoods still carries up to 0.04 fibers per cubic centimeter, 8 times the WHO's safety limit. Storms drive that number to 0.12. Mesothelioma rates reach 15 per million, 7 times the national average. A local researcher wrote that the cancer risk is not hypothetical, it is measured in funerals. Company logs show median worker exposure at 30 fiber years per cubic centimeter, far above EU limits. Mining continues, and the hazard remains invisible on any map. Røros, Norway, looks untouched, but soil tests reveal lead up to 350 milligrams per kilogram, 7 times Norway's guideline. The Glomma River carries dissolved lead at 45 micrograms per liter, 4 times the EU drinking water limit. Residents within 5 kilometers of the mine see a 1.4 times increase in kidney disease. Phytostabilization has cut surface lead by 30%, but contamination lingers beneath the heritage label. At Rammelsburg, Germany, groundwater once averaged 60 micrograms of lead per liter. Only after a massive solidification campaign did levels fall by 70%. Soil still holds up to 420 milligrams of lead per kilogram. Osteoporosis rates in women over 55 are double the regional average, linked to cadmium from mine waste. Remediation hides, but does not erase the harm. Corporations and regulators measured the risks, recorded the damage, and let these towns fade. Goli Otok appears as a barren island off Croatia, but satellite images can't reveal the barbed wire or the memories of terror. From 1949 to 1989, Yugoslavia sent thousands here, men and women accused of political crimes. Between 16,000 and 32,000 detainees passed through its concrete barracks. Deaths were never officially counted. Graves were left unmarked. Families were left with silence. The digital map erases the interrogations, the forced labor, the vanished sons and daughters. Agdam, Azerbaijan, is a city wiped from both maps and Earth. In 1993, as Azerbaijani forces withdrew during the Nagorno-Karabakh War, Armenian troops razed Agdam. Before the war, 40,000 people called it home. By the end, nearly every building was rubble. The mosque stands roofless, surrounded by empty streets and shattered concrete. Landmines and unexploded shells keep the ruins deadly. The United Nations condemned the destruction as a violation of international law. No one returned. The city's absence is absolute. Kopachi, Ukraine, is where the map fails most. Only a single kindergarten remains above ground. The rest were bulldozed after the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. By 1990, every wooden house had been buried in shallow trenches to contain radioactive dust. Surveys in 2015 measured gamma dose rates of 0.8 to 1.2 microsieverts per hour, 3 times higher than surrounding land. The danger lingers, measured in numbers that outlast memory. Kopachi is not just hidden, it is buried and hazardous, and it remains unacknowledged. Invisible towns mean invisible suffering. When governments and corporations erase places from the map, they erase responsibility too. Today, over 1,500 sites in Europe remain digitally censored or blurred. What we cannot see is still there, waiting for someone to confront what was buried and who paid the price. Share your thoughts below.